Hello and welcome to Signal Lantern, your beacon of freedom for the Northeast. I'm your host Jason, and here with me is Mark. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mark Barbato.
Wow, you're really doxing yourself. Last name too.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Wow. So Mark is our treasurer for Keepers of the Revolution, and he is also my stepfather. So he's had an um, outweighed influence on sort of my worldview and everything. And so I figured it's useful to have him on both for that reason and also because he's part of our e-board.
Thank you.
So introduce yourself.
My name is Mark Barbato. Obviously a stepfather. I originally was an accountant. Graduating college, I worked in the CPA world. I worked for the largest regional firm in New England, and then I moved on to private accounting. And I was working for a local lock manufacturer. And then I decided to go into business for myself, and I started, or rather, bought a local newspaper and became a publisher for a while. And then I became a teacher.
That's how I met your mother,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. So what lessons do you bring from that world? Because all of us, Remy and I were English and Matt was in IT. So what's different from your perspective?
Well, when it follows the adage, when you're young, you're very liberal because you're young and dumb. You have no experiences to base anything on. And you usually go along with your parents and your grandparents, etc. For instance, when my family, we came from a big Democrat family, always vote Democrat. The God save Kennedy. It was ridiculous. But then I got older and I realized, wow, I became more intelligent and I realized, I don't know about that. I don't know if those policies make sense. And then you get even older and all of a sudden you become wise and then you realize they're idiots. Um, Liberals tend to vote with their hearts, conservatives vote with their logic, and you hope the two shall meet. And of recent, the last 2 decades, those two have not met at all. And I've watched it since I was a kid. Uh, Reagan was the great hero, and everybody after that kind of let the side down. Even for conservatives, a Republican would become president or head of the House. And the next thing you know, they're starting a war bombing kids. I went from a Republican to a conservative because I could no longer support Republicans.
Yeah, and that's a whole thing about, first principles versus party loyalty, for example, is one thing. I was curious because you're the oldest of us about tracing that political line from, what's the earliest you can remember all the way to now. You have a lot of perspective seeing house races in the 1990s before I was born.
Yeah. I remember Reagan used to meet with Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the House from Massachusetts. And, he could have killed somebody in Massachusetts and they still would have voted him in as the House rep so he could retain speakership. It, I watched who we elected in this state from a small childhood all the way to now. And even when Republicans get office, you find out that they're not real Republicans. They're Democrats who lean slightly to the right. That's why the Democrats don't care if we get governor in this state. It doesn't matter. It might as well be electing a Democrat. And what do we got? 2 members of the House, 3 members of the House that are Republicans, and the rest are all Democrat.
Favorable.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All Democrat. Well, how do you expect to flip this state red nationally if we can't get more than 2 or 3 seats locally? That's ridiculous. We expect the kids to, you know, this is like the state with all the colleges. Oh, dear God. I remember when I was a kid, they always told you, you need an associate's degree to get a good job. By the time I got an associate's degree, it was you need a bachelor's degree to get a good job. And now it's You can get underwater basket weaving as a major. Are you kidding? Well, what pot of gold is at the end of that rainbow? There is none.
I don't know. I've heard underwater basket weaving is a very lucrative field. Don't underestimate it. All that and gender studies degrees.
Anything that ends in studies, fail. There's no job.
Yeah, fair enough. So you're talking about the state individually. You know, I wonder what was it like back in ye olden days for you at the state level too? Because I mean, you talked about the Kennedy chokehold, but I do remember seeing like having GOP representatives in like the 1996, I think was the last time.
Yeah, but it's like I said, you've got one. So what? It doesn't matter. This state historically is a lot. We're the East Coast, California. We have all the colleges and all the education and all the dumb. Uh, let's we're gonna make this policy to save the tree frogs over here because my heart bleeds and I don't want dead tree frogs. Well, unfortunately, that policy is going to cost $5 billion, and oh yeah, it's a reoccurring cost. But the tree frogs, holy Christ, I don't even know where to start.
But I'd also like to say that I mean we are talking about this generally in partisan terms of Republican and Democrat, but there are the reverse of conservatives who will run as Democrats just because that's what will get them elected.
Are they really conservative or are they just Massachusetts conservative?
I mean, yeah, there is that point about the Overton window, how I've always said that a Texas far left liberal is like the most right wing person you'll find in Mass,
If you're talking Austin, yes.
minus Austin.
Yeah, Austin's where all the Californians went when they destroyed their state. So they moved to Austin to destroy the great state of Texas, and they're going to be moving eastward as they go. So don't worry, your turn will come.
Now, I'd like to shift this over to history, though, because one of the large thrusts about CORE is history and that we're how the revolution continues. But in order to do that, we need to know what the revolution actually is. So, talk about that as someone who was a teacher.
Well, as a teacher, I think we first have to start educating our children about what was good about America and what was good specifically about Massachusetts in the founding days. Now, in today's education, they're going to tell you all the bad that occurred. Well, yeah, of course. Well, I could do that with any situation in any time, and it doesn't even matter what the situation or when. I could come up with bad things that have occurred during it. What they're failing to realize is we always strive to get better. Hence, there was an operation within the government that allowed us to amend our highest document called the Constitution. It's because, well, not all things are considered at the time, and well, times change. But they made it difficult because when times changed, they didn't want it to be like change the document at the whim of the people, whichever way the wind blows at any moment. It was meant more to slowly bring about change that was more thoughtful and considered. And that's where the difference between conservatives and liberals are, because they vote and act with their feelings. They are very quick to act and they don't consider other things that go on with their action or alternatives to their action. It's the action is there to make them feel better about whatever, whether it's the tree frogs, immigrants.
The tree frogs that the government are turning gay.
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything, but it all delves down to their feelings about it. Well, conservatives go, yeah, we all have feelings, but my feelings are different than yours, but my facts ought to be the same as yours. So let's legislate and make rules based on facts rather than feelings, because if we went on feelings, you wouldn't fare very well in my world.
Mm. And something he taught me, not, I don't ever think explicitly, but he certainly demonstrated this, is that it's not that conservatives are unfeeling, heartless monsters. It's just that we are able to temper that in order to ask the questions of what actually matters here and not to make a rash or imprudent decision. And that's really the separation there. Is it's not about uh only heart or only facts, but rather which is leading.
Agreed. Absolutely. It's the basis of why I became a conservative, quite frankly. I was raised in a household where, education was real important. So my father, as a college professor, would always, quiz us at the table about current events. What happened today? Anything significant? And then we'd talk about it. I always got the beat down because I was the only conservative at the table. But before I was a conservative, I listened to like how everything felt, and then I would watch the news and see the hypocrisy. And you do see that in the Republican Party as well, but not with true conservatives. You usually see that with the rhinos and the dinos. They'll say anything to get elected. It's kind of proof of the pudding with Trump now, where I support jellyfish. We hate jellyfish. I mean, holy good God. They have no at this point in time, this is liberalism at its worst. They have no platform except Orange Man bad, MAGA bad. They make us sound so cool with these names, MAGA and Ultra
Ultra
MAGA.
MAGA, nuclear
I
MAGA.
have never felt so cool in my life. Honest to God, I couldn't have made it up and sounded better. But anyways, it boils down to you have to feel about an issue, but then put it aside, like you said, and okay, what realistically can we do about this in the least harmful way? But the least harmful isn't just for the tree frogs, it's for us too.
Yeah, I remember seeing this meme once, and it was Trump being like, oxygen, sweet oxygen. And then it's just liberals suffocating themselves with plastic bags over their heads.
I wouldn't doubt it. Honestly, if
Yeah.
he came out and said that, I wouldn't doubt it if at least one liberal in the country didn't drag their butts over to the Supreme Court steps, throw a hissy fit, put a plastic bag and a zip tie over their head, and call it a day. I wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, but this speaks largely to the degradation of politics. Civilized conversation and debate are now thrown out the window. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, despite being political enemies, could sit down and have a civilized conversation about things. And for my part, I hope to resurrect that in some way. Maybe not the exact same way, but at least bring that spirit back.
See, the problem is back in the day, you're right. Conservatives and liberals could get together and we all had the same place we wanted to get to. Like America, it was like we all looked at America and said on a tree and said, America is great. We built, it was built wonderful. It's great and we can improve, but we need to get better. And this is where we want to go. And then liberals and conservatives would disagree about how to get there. Like you and your wife trying to follow an old fashioned map. There's two different ways to get to the same spot. You just got to, agree to things, compromise. Today, dear God, their location is socialism and communism. They just elected a socialist mayor in New York City who just came out and said that white ownership of property is patriarchal and part of the white supremacy, and he's going to strip property from white people now. He's not only is the city going to own the grocery stores, but if you're white, your property's gone.
And I suppose this is the inevitable problem when it comes to attempting to have an organization which is distinctly regional is that there are a lot of trickle down national issues. And so obviously we're not supporting candidates for public office nationally, at least not yet. Um, Eventually I'd like it to get to the point where we're doing like state level congressmen, right? That is, statewide, but also national. It's not like we're getting behind a president or anything. And so it's both good and bad because I've been door knocking before and I've met people like in New Hampshire. I specifically remember this old guy who I knocked on his door and he was like happy to see me. I guess his wife had passed and he hadn't seen like anyone for months. And, he was saying, "Oh, I'm so like worried about Trump and I'm so worried about the Republican Party." And I was able to say, "Well, good, that's okay because, this insert local politician here actually has nothing to do with that. It's just for your race. So get out there and vote." I think complacency is a huge issue, honestly. The perception that you're in the minority, the perception that you can't make any meaningful impact. But in town level races, a dozen votes can flip the scales. And it's extremely important not to just throw up your hands and be like, I'm actually not, I'm going to sit this one out because your vote can make a difference.
The last public, like local town meeting I went to, there was a very serious issue brought to the floor, and it was planned, but it was a very serious issue for the Rochdale area of the town. Like 600 people out of 1,900 available voters showed up and changed the town policy, which went to real estate taxes and water bills, so that those people had to pay a heck of a lot more now. And they didn't vote. They came back later and said, well, we didn't vote for this. And it's like, well, you didn't show up when the vote happened. That's shame on you.
Those complaining about an issue and then refusing to do anything about it lose their right to complain about it. And honestly, that's a lot of what started this is I just won't sit idly by and watch as my state and this entire region goes up in flames. So about you, what are you hopeful for going forward?
Honestly, I'm hopeful. Most people would say, well, you should be hopeful for, Trump's second term and all. And well, yeah, I am. But in reality, I'm hopeful for what that started to represent, which was a movement for the future. It doesn't die with him, so he leaves office and it's over. No, this whole thing about MAGA and movement away from being a Republican, being conservative instead. I think it starts locally and it goes nationally. If you don't have it locally, you're not going to be in the national favor. So it's like, yeah, the Democrats can count on Massachusetts every year to vote Democrat without fail. The only time that didn't happen was when Reagan got in.
I
And
thought it was
or
back
was
at,
it?
it was, I'm pretty sure it was Calvin Coolidge
Oh,
or
Calvin
Ike.
Coolidge. Well,
It was a while
how
ago.
about this? Either way, that's crazy. Like, no matter when.
Well, because I know for Nixon, he won like 49 out of 50 states, and that
Right.
Massachusetts was the
Was
one that
the
didn't
one that
go.
didn't go.
I'm not
Shocking.
sure about H.W. Bush. Um, I don't think Massachusetts has gone
Has
red
gone red at all?
since
I thought they
either.
went Reagan. I
Actually,
could be
why don't
wrong.
we look it up right now?
I could be
I'm
wrong.
gonna pull up another tab that I'm curious.
If we didn't go for Reagan, then good Lord, everybody else did.
Do 270 to win. Okay, so oh yeah, 1984.
Yeah.
So I guess you're right about Reagan, but then
Yeah.
prior to Reagan, it was Ike Eisenhower and then Coolidge. And Coolidge is predictable because Coolidge was, I believe, governor of Massachusetts. So he was sort of like a favorite son.
Kind of vote.
Yeah, so I guess the thing is for me is I'm very careful not to. I mean, conservative means different things to different people depending on the audience. And I've boiled it down to if you follow sort of like an Antonin Scalia style of looking at the Constitution as whoever wrote it, whether it's the founders or the amendment, intended it, and you follow that, then that's the type of person we're supporting, irregardless of party.
I would agree with that, and I'd also include Justice Thomas with that.
Well, yeah, it is kind of funny because people will be like, "Oh, conservatives are racist," and that's like, if conservatives had their way, it'd just be like 9 Clarence Thomases. If there was a cloning machine, they just have him.
True. He would be. I would allow any number of justices if they were all had to be Thomas. I don't care how many you want. We just put them all in there, clone them.
Yeah, so I guess this is the first episode where I've really substantively talked about national issues. I know Remy brought up like Israel and farm subsidies at some point. But I suppose the my largest issue is just free speech. I've had interactions on college campuses where free speech was denied and I had to stand up against it. You know the entire story. Um, but I'm trying to think of other things locally that we can impact policy wise.
Well, first we have to vote. Without the votes, it doesn't matter. We could talk all year and it wouldn't matter. So people have to go out and vote, and not just vote whatever or party. You have to know who you're voting for or the issue you're voting for or against before you go and vote. I would rather you not vote if you're ignorant of the issues or the person. I wouldn't vote if I didn't know anything about the issue or the person. I wouldn't want anyone to vote just blindly. Uh, One of the things that we need to do is get more Republicans, actual conservatives, into office locally. Everything from dog catcher to governor to town council to the school committee. School committees are extremely important, by the way. We need to take our education system back. And we need to get rid of the Department of Education completely.
Yes, you've mentioned that. We both like Vivek Ramaswamy. Hope he gets governor. Uh,
There is one other thing.
yeah, shoot.
If you would like lower taxes, if you would like to be able to trust the people that you vote for, we need a local Doge. I swear to God, just let them go through the system. Everything will be fine. Trust me, except everything will cost less.
Yeah, and I mean Massachusetts voted for an audit like overwhelmingly, like 75%, and they still have been blocking it at every turn. Massachusetts is one of the least transparent states in the entire union.
You will never get an audit in this state unless there is good conservatives in offices. It's like going to the guy who robs the local liquor store and asking him about liquor. Why am I going to have a liberal in there who already ruined the place? They're not going to clean it up. Historically, if you look at like cities that have turned themselves around, what happens is the liberals and the Democrats drive the city or the town into the dumps, and then the town or the city, votes in a conservative, and then he turns it around, and then they vote in the liberal again because my heart bleeds and everything's all sunshine and daisies, and then he drives it into the ground again, and then they get a Republican in office, and we go through this for 100 years. I mean, look at New York City. If you looked at the history of New York City mayors,
Yeah, like Rudy
he
Giuliani all the
brought
way
it.
to
Yeah, well, before
Mamdani.
that, before Giuliani, there was a liberal in office. He drove the city into the dirt. Okay, get a Republican in here, fix it up. Okay, the place looks great again. Bring a liberal in. We need to party. Put holes in the walls. I mean, it's not a frat house. It's our state.
Well, yeah, that about sums it up. I think we need better people in office. There are plenty of issues. We can go down the line and talk about all the ones that are royally screwed up. But the point being is that the government has broken and it's not going to fix itself. It's not going to save itself. And it needs us to step in. Do you have any final thoughts?
We need more young people being involved. You don't have to run for office, but you could stand outside with a sign, or you could talk to your friends or your relatives or whoever may have a stake in whatever election you're involved in. It's important. Be heard and don't be afraid.
Absolutely. Keepersoftherevolution.org. We have a sign up button. Furthermore, I'd like to point out earlier you had said that um, it's important for informed citizens to go and actually know stuff. And I hope that in years to come or even months to come, we're going to hit the ground running, starting to interview candidates, but also talk about different ballot issues that are going on and become a source of information for voters to actually be able to understand in a concise way what to do. So,
And honestly, I think that is one of the most important things for our core vision is ground up advocacy on local issues. I mean, issues in your town, issues in your city, not national stuff. I'm talking local stuff. Those are the most important things to the people all around you. Fix your local, then we'll fix our federal.
absolutely. And we are how the revolution continues. Thank you very much for tuning into this episode. Don't forget to spread the signal, and I'll see you next week.